Her service was a waste. My daughter didn't serve this country. She hid in a logistics depot while real heroes bled on the front lines. And now, she sits here pretending her 4 years of cowardly paper shuffling entitle her to her father's legacy estate. My mother, Beatrice Montgomery, shrieked those venomous words into the microphone, her voice echoing off the high marble walls of the Grand Cypress Ballroom in Austin, Texas. 88 distinguished guests, high-ranking state officials, real estate tycoons, active military commanders, and my own extended family froze in utter shock. Fine silver forks stopped mid-air over roasted tenderloin, and champagne bubbles died in frozen crystal flutes as every eye in the house darted toward row 2. Beatrice stood under the glittering glare of the central chandelier, her diamond necklace reflecting the harsh light, her face twisted in a mask of theatrical grief and cold hatred. She pointed a manicured, trembling finger directly at where I sat. I wasn't wearing a designer cocktail dress like my younger sister, Chloe. I sat straight-backed in my Army service uniform, my dark hair secured in a tight regulation bun, my brass buttons polished, and a subtle silver oak leaf pin on my collar, alongside a combat action badge and a Distinguished Service Cross ribbon. "Look at her!" Beatrice cried out, her voice dropping from a mourning widow's speech into a prosecutor's ruthless execution. She came to her own father's military retirement and memorial gala wearing stolen ribbons she likely bought online. After 4 years of turning her back on the Montgomery family business, refusing to sign over her trust allocation, she shows up to claim a seat at the head table? "Security, remove this disgraceful fraud before she ruins my husband's memory." My younger sister, Chloe, leaned over the head table and let out a dramatic, sobbing gasp, dabbing her dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. Beside her, my uncle, Harrison Montgomery, the acting CEO of Montgomery Global Logistics, a private defense contractor handling supply distribution for Central Command out of a secure hub in Houston, didn't utter a single word in my defense. He simply took a slow sip of his aged whiskey, his cold blue eyes locking onto mine, muttering loud enough to the neighboring table to hear, "You brought this on yourself, Hannah. You should have signed the corporate release when we asked nicely. Leave before we make this public." They truly believed I was going to burst into tears, drop my gaze, and run out into the pouring Texas storm. They believed 4 years of psychological isolation, intercepted family letters, and a ruthless campaign to label me mentally unstable had left me shattered, desperate, and powerless. They had no idea that beneath Seat 4 rested a steel-reinforced tactical briefcase containing an encrypted Department of the Army forensic audit, a weathered field notebook stamped with serial code LOG992, and a voice recording certified by federal prosecutors. And they certainly didn't know that sitting quietly in the back corner of Table 8, dressed in an unadorned service dress uniform, was Lieutenant General Raymond Vance, the Deputy Commander of Army Materiel Command, waiting for Beatrice Montgomery to finish laying her own legal trap. If you want to see how cold tactical discipline, ironclad paper trails, and unyielding military honor tear down a multi-million-dollar empire of family greed, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on all notifications, and never miss a story where the truth claims its ultimate victory. To understand how my own mother ended up declaring my military service a coward's waste before 88 high society elites, you have to look back 48 months to the night my life was shattered at a forward supply node near Kandahar. I was a captain assigned to a specialized logistics and threat audit unit embedded with an armored brigade. My job wasn't sitting in safe, air-conditioned depots. It was auditing military supply lines, tracking high-value defense equipment, and accompanying tactical convoys through combat zones to prevent black market theft. My uncle, Harrison Montgomery, the chief executive of Montgomery Global Logistics, a private defense contractor handling supply distribution for Central Command out of a secure hub in Houston, On the night of March 19th, my three-vehicle supply convoy was ambushed in a narrow mountain pass. The lead vehicle was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade, severing our tactical comms link to base defense. My commanding officer, Major Thomas Blake, a 19-year veteran and a father of two, was pinned under crushed steel with a severed artery in his leg. Under intense small arms fire from elevated positions, I pulled Major Blake out of the burning chassis, dragged him 60 yards through an exposed trench, applied a mechanical tourniquet, and used an emergency short-range satellite transmitter to manually request an armed quick reaction force. Because standard tactical frequencies were jammed, I had to route our priority extraction signal, codenamed Ironclad 9, directly through the private contractor relay operated by Montgomery Global Logistics. I spoke into the hand mic while shrapnel chipped the dirt wall above my head. Contractor relay, this is Captain Hannah Montgomery. We have an urgent casualty and are surrounded at grid 3-9 Juliet. Override the regional routing lock and clear the air support window now. Over. Static crackled through the receiver. Then my Uncle Harrison's voice came over the speaker, cold, measured, and terrifyingly calm. Captain Montgomery, private contractor bandwidth is currently reserved for priority commercial supply transfers. Reroute your request through military standard channels. Out. Harrison, listen to me, I screamed over the deafening thunder of incoming mortar fire. Major Blake is dying. Military channels are jammed. Override the contractor lock. Authorize the air support window now. There was a 5-second silence on the line, a silence that would scar my soul for 4 straight years. Request denied, Captain. Do not disrupt commercial operations. Out. The transmission terminated. Major Thomas Blake died in that muddy trench 35 minutes later, holding my wrist, his blood soaking into the sleeve of my combat uniform. By the time an infantry relief column reached our position 2 hours later, I had sustained severe shrapnel wounds to my left ribs and was suffering from acute blood loss. When I woke up 3 weeks later at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, I expected a full court-martial of the contractor management. I expected Harrison to be dragged before a military tribunal for withholding emergency contractor relay support during an active engagement. Instead, when I opened my eyes, my mother, Beatrice, and my uncle, Harrison, were standing at the side of my bed. "You're finally awake, Hannah," Beatrice said, her voice entirely stripped of maternal warmth. "We have already handled your administrative processing. You are being medically retired due to severe operational shock and psychological instability." I tried to sit up, my chest screaming in agony under tight medical wraps. "What are you talking about? Harrison refused our emergency relay signal. He let Major Blake die to keep his private transport lines open." Harrison stepped forward, adjusting his gold cufflinks, his eyes devoid of emotion. "You were hysterical, Hannah. Your official medical records note that you suffered a severe panic episode under fire, wandered off your designated route, and misread your equipment. Beatrice and I used our political capital to ensure you received an honorable discharge instead of facing a general court-martial for negligence." I stared at them, my breath catching in my throat. "You altered my official military records?" "We protected the Montgomery name," Beatrice declared coldly, holding her designer handbag against her hip. "Your father's health is failing. Harrison is taking the family firm public next year. If the Department of Defense discovered that his niece was accusing our company of relay interference during a combat loss, it would ruin our corporate valuation. You will keep quiet, collect your disability check, and stay away from Austin." Over the next 3 years, they conducted a masterclass in psychological destruction. Whenever I tried to contact members of my former brigade, I found their phone numbers disconnected or my digital messages blocked. My mother filed a petition in Texas court claiming I was mentally incompetent to manage the trust fund left to me by my grandfather, attaching affidavits signed by a private physician who had never examined me for more than 10 minutes.
They intercepted my personal mail, had my medical files redirected through a clinic owned by one of Harrison's corporate allies, and told our extended family that I had suffered a mental breakdown overseas and was fabricating combat stories out of guilt. The final blow landed 4 months ago. My father, General Edward Montgomery, retired, a man of absolute integrity who had been kept completely isolated from the truth by my mother, passed away in his sleep. Before he died, he managed to send an encrypted email to a private address I had created years prior, containing a single line: "Hannah, the brass key in my military shadow box opens the safe deposit box at First National in San Antonio. Do not let Harrison sign the defense merger." I didn't rush to the bank immediately. I knew Harrison had hired private investigators to track my movements. Instead, I played the part of the broken, defeated daughter. I let them believe their lies had completely eroded my spirit. I let them think I was completely powerless, right up until the evening of my father's memorial gala. Now, standing in the center aisle of the Grand Cypress Ballroom, beneath the gaze of 88 high society guests, Beatrice's voice boomed through the speakers once more.
"Security, I ordered you to clear this hall," Beatrice shouted, pointing frantically at 2 venue guards standing near the double doors. "She is trespassing on private corporate property. My late husband would be sickened to see this unstable woman making a spectacle of his legacy." The 2 guards stepped forward, their leather shoes squeaking against the polished marble floor as they approached me. I didn't flinch. I didn't take a step back. I simply rotated my shoulders, bringing my hands out of my pockets to rest flat against my sides, locking eyes with the lead guard. "Stand down," I said, my voice low, crisp, and ringing with the unyielding authority of a senior military officer. "You are attempting to interfere with an active federal counterintelligence operation under Title 18 authority. Take one more step and you will be detained for obstruction." The lead guard stopped dead in his tracks, catching the absolute absence of panic in my posture. He glanced nervously toward the head table. My Uncle Harrison stood up from his chair, his face turning an angry shade of purple. "Hannah, stop this ridiculous performance right now. You are a disgraced officer who couldn't handle combat. Have you no respect for your father's memory?" My sister Chloe squeezed out another loud, dramatic sob into her handkerchief. "Oh, Mom, she's completely lost her mind. Look at her. Someone call the police before she hurts somebody." Beatrice smirked from behind the podium, gripping the microphone tighter. "You see this, ladies and gentlemen? This is the tragic reality of severe operational delirium. She actually believes she's an active officer. She never saved anyone in Afghanistan. She sat in a rear supply tent, froze when things got tough, and let her commanding officer die while she hid under a truck." A wave of shocked whispers rippled through the rows of guests. I saw state senators whispering behind their hands. I saw active duty colonels frowning in discomfort. "Are you finished, Beatrice?" I asked, taking 2 calm steps up the center aisle. "I am finished tolerating your pathetic lies, Hannah," Beatrice spat into the mic. "Leave this building immediately." "Then let's talk about log code LOG 992. The room dropped into absolute stone-cold silence. Beatrice's smirk froze. Her manicured fingers twitched against the metallic surface of the microphone. "What did you just say?" "I said log LOG 992, I repeated, walking steadily toward the podium, the brass buttons of my uniform catching the light. "The classified contractor routing code for Montgomery Global Logistics' private satellite relay on March 19th. The logbook that magically disappeared from your Houston server 48 hours after Major Thomas Blake died." Harrison took a sudden, aggressive step around the head table, his fist clenched. "Hannah, corporate communication logs are proprietary property. Where did you get that code?" "It was missing from your corporate server," I said, pulling out the small brass key my father had left me and holding it high for the room to see.
Until 4 days ago, when I used my father's key to open his private safe deposit box, the one you couldn't touch because his will explicitly barred you from accessing his military personal effects. Beatrice's face drained of color. She looked at Harrison with a sudden, sharp look of genuine terror. "That key proves nothing," Beatrice yelled, her voice breaking into a high, hysterical screech. "You forged those records. You've spent 4 years making up wild stories because you can't accept that you failed your duty." "I didn't forge the satellite transmission timestamps, Beatrice," I said, my voice clear and razor-sharp. "And I certainly didn't forge the sworn testimony of the chief relay operator who was working the Houston desk on the night of March 19th. I turned my head toward the back of the ballroom. "Lieutenant General Vance, would you please present the official records?" From table 8 in the far corner, Lieutenant General Raymond Vance rose to his feet, standing at 6'2" in his full-dress uniform, adorned with 3 stars on each shoulder. He unbuttoned his jacket, revealing a stack of red-stamped federal documents inside his portfolio, and walked down the center aisle with a slow, powerful stride. Beside him, 2 uniformed military police officers and a federal prosecutor stepped into the room. Beatrice's jaw fell open. The microphone picked up her sharp, gasping breath. "General Vance, why are you here? This is a private family event." "I am here because Captain Hannah Montgomery is not a disgraced former officer, Mrs. Montgomery. She is an active member of the Defense Logistics Agency's Special Investigations Unit, and for the past 14 months, she has been leading a federal audit into Montgomery Global Logistics."
The ballroom exploded into a chaotic chorus of gasps and shocked shouting. Active duty officers in the front rows bolted straight up in their seats, staring at Harrison with open disgust. "Harrison," a state senator near the front called out, his voice laced with cold fury. "Is this true? Did your company deliberately refuse an emergency military relay during a combat engagement?" "No, it's an elaborate lie," Harrison shouted, backing away toward the rear stage curtain. "General Vance is being misled. Hannah is using her military connections to destroy our corporate merger. This is a personal vendetta over her grandfather's estate." "It is not a personal vendetta, Mr. Montgomery," the federal prosecutor announced loudly, stepping up to the podium and placing a certified court order directly over Beatrice's notes. "It is the execution of a multi-count federal indictment issued by the United States District Court for the Western District of Texas." The prosecutor turned to face the 88 high society guests. "For the past 3 years, Mr. Harrison Montgomery and Mrs. Beatrice Montgomery have systematically falsified corporate relay logs, suppressed combat transmission records, and bribed civilian medical examiners to alter Captain Montgomery's medical records." The prosecutor locked his eyes onto Harrison. Why? Because on the night of March 19th, Harrison Global Logistics was using its private contractor satellite bandwidth to illegally route an unauthorized shipment of 18 commercial transport vehicles to an unverified buyer in Dubai. Granting Captain Hannah's emergency military medevac override would have automatically triggered a central command audit of their active bandwidth, exposing their multi-million-dollar black market operation. They deliberately let Major Thomas Blake bleed to death to conceal their corporate treason. Pandemonium broke out across the ballroom. Guests rose from their chairs in complete outrage. Political donors turned their backs on the head table, rushing toward the side exits to avoid the news cameras gathering near the doors. Beatrice looked like she was going to faint. She stumbled backward against the podium wall, clutching her chest, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror. "Harrison, tell them it was all your idea. I only signed the papers because you told me it would save the company." "Shut up, Beatrice," Harrison snarled, his face twisted in desperate rage as he backed further into a corner. "You tried to erase my service, Beatrice,"
I said, stepping right up to the front of the head table, looking my mother directly in her eyes. You told everyone I hid in a supply tent. You stole 4 years of my life, isolated me from my family, and slandered my name to protect a company built on blood money. But you forgot one fundamental truth. An Army logistics officer tracks everything. I reached up, unpinned the silver oak leaf rank from my collar, and placed it gently next to my father's framed retirement portrait on the table. My service was never a waste. Your greed was. 2 federal marshals stepped onto the stage, their steel handcuffs gleaming under the chandelier light. Harrison Montgomery, Beatrice Montgomery, the lead marshal commanded. You are under arrest for federal conspiracy, treason, obstruction of justice, supply chain fraud, and reckless endangerment resulting in death. Place your hands behind your backs. Chloe screamed in terror, collapsing into her chair and burying her face in her hands as the marshals moved in on her mother and uncle. Harrison tried to pull his arms away, weeping frantically as the cold steel cuffs clicked tight around his wrists. Hannah, please, you're my niece. Talk to General Vance. We can fix this inside the family. Family doesn't leave soldiers to die in the dark for profit, Harrison, General Vance said coldly as the marshals escorted him away. Beatrice offered no further fight. As the marshals secured her hands behind her back, she turned to look at me one last time. Not with anger, not with arrogance, but with the hollow, terrifying realization that her entire status, her wealth, and her legacy had been utterly demolished in less than 20 minutes. As the ballroom emptied and the flashing red and blue lights of federal law enforcement vehicles reflected off the tall glass windows of the Grand Cypress Ballroom, I stood alone beside my father's portrait. The storm outside raged on, but inside, the air was clean, sharp, and free of toxic lies. I took a deep, steady breath, felt the crushing burden of 4 long years melt away from my chest, and knew that Major Thomas Blake's memory had finally received the justice it deserved.